Welcome to the Global Spin Podcast with me, Ryan Cramer, where we take a deep dive into the world of global selling and share the secrets to growing your brand in new markets. Whether you're looking to expand your brand, enter new markets, or boost your sales, we've got you covered. Tune in for unscripted, engaging episodes that will take you on a journey of discovery and success. Let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Global Spin Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Cramer, and this is my corner of the internet where I bring the best and brightest in the Amazon e-commerce and logistics space. What does that mean? Well, this podcast is built around having unscripted conversations with people who are successful in the Amazon e-commerce and logistics space. Kind of how that introduction meant. We don't have any preset notions. We have a general title, and then we kind of dig in and we get those golden nuggets for you who are spending time with us. So thanks for all of you who are listening on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And also, if you're listening to this on your audio version of your platform of choice, whether it be Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Amazon Music, wherever you might be listening to us, we appreciate you and thank you for following and subscribing to our amazing podcast. This is episode 8, and we've titled it Selling on Amazon Tips, Tricks, in Running a Real Business. And I have a really awesome and special guest today. Podcast wouldn't be the same if it was just one person talking. It would just be a monologue that's an hour long, and no one wants to hear me speak for that long. So I always bring on people who I call friends of the show after they make it through an hour with me. But people who are special in the space, I like to talk with and kind of pick their brain and see what the business world is like for them, whether it be experienced or they're talking about a specific topic. But falling under this, guys, I wanted to bring on co-founder of AMZ Innovate, Brandon Fuhrmann. He's an Amazon seller. We were jokingly talking about how long he's been selling. He used to say a couple of years, but now it's been roughly 10 years or so. And jokingly, it feels like we're all aging in dog years. So welcome to the Global Spin Podcast, Brandon Fuhrmann, co-founder of AMZ Innovate. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it was a joke too, by the way. We're both just laughing, like, oh my gosh, it just feels like we've been in the space not very long, but time
Yeah,
catches up. It doesn't lie.
yeah, basically a decade. Yeah, first time I've ever said it. Yeah,
I know out loud. It's not true unless you say it out loud. So I'm glad we got it out there into the internet. So hey, thanks for joining me in my corner of the internet today. I know you're a busy guy. For people who you're kind of like a behind the scenes guy, I would say you seem like a very methodical behind the scenes, make sure that things are running smoothly person instead of on YouTube or yelling out loud to the ether of the internet kind of person. Would you classify yourself as that, or do I have you wrong?
yeah. No, I mean, like I primarily am just heads down in my own business, like working on my e-commerce business. That's what I do. So, I know YouTube channel, no crazy Twitter feed, no nothing. Yeah.
No, something that sparks an emotion and want to argue with somebody who's behind another screen.
Yeah,
Nothing.
no. I realized early on, I think several years ago, that arguing with people on the internet is not a good idea. I've never come away been like that was a good use of my time. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Let's before we get, I mean, I would love to again pick your brain a little bit because you are running an event with other people in the space, and
Mhm.
that's and something I'm going to talk about a little bit later. But about your journey, we jokingly said like, hey, we've been doing this for so long. Between myself, I've been in e-commerce around 7 to 8 years and different facets in the space, and you've been selling in e-commerce for 10 years. What kind of before then? What did you do before e-commerce? Was it always some sort of entrepreneurial
Y-
experience or that you had, or this kind of
yeah.
opportunity provoked itself?
It's actually a weird story. So I've been on the internet since like forever, basically. Like I was like NCSA Mosaic Cool Site of the Day with a friend of mine in high school before there even like was an Amazon. They had a blue logo when they first launched. Like I saw it, like I was there. So I've always been in the internet space in some capacity. After college, I tried to basically create like a Grubhub, Uber Eats kind of thing, but that was before there were phones. Not there were phones, but there weren't like smartphones before that, so it
Right.
was like way too early on that. And I sold oil paintings online for a while, did some SEO consulting, and then the algorithm changed on Google, and I kind of lost my whole business. Went to law school,
As one
and
does.
yeah, I was like, I guess this is over. I don't know what to do now. I can't. I know my site doesn't work anymore. And went to law school, and then sold my books on Amazon after those semesters. And I saw the power of it. And then when ASM came out, I like recognized immediately because I just saw the model of the book selling. I already had e-commerce experience. I was already sourcing things from China before, and I was like, "Oh, well, this is much easier. Yeah, I should just do this." So I just jumped in. I graduated law school, passed the bar in New York and New Jersey, and then started selling e-commerce. Yeah.
So you can literally, so you can defend yourself. Are you still a do you still have your license or?
I'm retired, which is just like my license isn't active. But if I wanted to, I could absolutely activate it and get running with that again. So
That's amazing. Oh, that's an accomplishment in itself, and that's really cool that you can do something like that. But have it as a quote, everyone has a backup plan, right? If things go awry in the e-commerce space. But that's amazing. What a cool story. That's such a unique thing. And in ASM, you meant Amazing Selling Machine, correct?
yes,
The first, if you
the
will, the
first course,
course.
yeah. I was on some of the like SEO like email lists, so some people were like promoting the course, and then I just kind of saw the model, and I just was like recognized immediately that like this is something that would absolutely work.
I've talked to hundreds of people on podcasts before. It seems like I would say a good chunk, I wouldn't say over half, but I would say maybe 40% of people who start selling on Amazon is because of the Amazing Selling Machine. Is that surprise you, or is that more of a you if you're around long enough, like that was the only way that you knew?
Yeah, I
Uh,
think, they had just had a really popular course, that frankly gave very good affiliate commissions to the people
there
who
you go.
promoted it, right? So if you were on any kind of list looking to start an online business, 8, 10 years ago, you were going to hear about it. So, if you were ready to roll when it came out, and like back then things were a lot easier, then it was a lot easier to gain like some traction at that time.
Right.
Now things are different. Things are a lot more complicated. I don't know if that was like that would be the first place I would go. But at that time, yeah, it was like the golden years of that kind of thing, and they got the word out for sure.
And this was 20, we said 10 years, 2013, 2014,
Yeah,
15
yeah, it was right around. It
area.
was right around there. Yeah,
Okay. So we're talking, I always say like the Wild West days or the
yeah,
earlier days of Amazon. Doesn't feel like a long time ago, but for in e-commerce years that does seem like a long time ago. You started your business. Is this something that you're still running the same
yes,
business
the same
today?
business. Yeah,
Wow, that's amazing. What was it like you went to your family or you yourself you're starting this and this is something that you've done. Has your goal from day one changed over time, or is it you've been running the same business for 10 years? Is there like an ultimate plan, or is it kind of just evolved over time?
yeah. A lot of it has just evolved over time. When I was first started, a lot of it was just like testing the model, not putting too much money into something that might fail. So I got
Sure.
like a very cheap kitchen product and like got like a couple hundred of them and put them online, and then they sold, and like that was amazing. And I had been back and forth with suppliers from China on different other projects and different things. And around 20, I don't know, right after my wedding, we went on a honeymoon to Asia using all these brand new credit card points I suddenly started getting. And I convinced my wife to do like a 6-week trip around Asia, but we would also stop in like Shenzhen and
Just a quick
Dongguan,
pop in.
just a
Yeah,
quick pop
exactly.
in, yeah, in Hong Kong. And my wife was like, "Really?" And I'm like, "No, no, it'll be like for 4 days out of the 6 weeks. It's going to be great. Like we'll stay at the nicest hotel in Shenzhen," which we did, and it was actually ended up being like her favorite part of the trip because like the factory agents I'd been in touch with and had become friends with took us around and did all this stuff. But in that process, I got a couple products that are still some of my best sellers today, just from that trip in the early time period. So
That's incredible.
yeah,
I love
so
that.
it was cool because I got the samples, and then we ordered the product, and then we went on our trip, and I was communicating with the suppliers, and right when I came back, like the products were there, were ready to go, and ready to start promoting. So it was like good timing.
So is that something that you've almost like accidentally stumbled into the model, right? Of like, hey, we might as well be there. We want to engage in person. Has that model like been consistent for you, or has it had to evolve over time with like differences and obviously with COVID, but you also
Yeah.
have do you do like in person trips with
Yeah,
your
I
suppliers and
still absolutely prefer to go in person, go to the Canton Fair, or show my face at suppliers. To me, I think that's always, the way to go if you can. I think it really just really putting yourself there to the supplier just gives you just such a better advantage over people who are not. Just like you get better terms and better rates, and they're showing you new products right then and there. So I think that's really, really great. With COVID, obviously things had to change. And I haven't been back to China since COVID, so it's been like 3 years now. So I'm really like itching to go. But yeah, it's been really great for sure.
That's amazing. So what about, so you kind of teased a little bit, you found a kitchen product. Is that the arena that we're working in
Yeah,
still,
yeah,
the
I
category?
saw kitchenware, yeah, yeah, and then
Okay.
yeah, and that's was a lot of it was my wife's doing too. She's better at finding the products than me. So like, I have a daughter who was now almost 7, but she before COVID she was like 3 and had already been to China twice because we just went as a
Wow.
family on that trip and just made it a family trip. Yeah.
I love that, and that's something that, yeah, travel is important. I found this too very important to, and funny that a lot of people in e-commerce, whether they're being their own entrepreneur, they love traveling. Like
Hmm.
almost, I would say 90% of e-commerce sellers or Amazon sellers love traveling. They just love like heads down work or like on their laptop, and they're often they're in a random part of the world. It's always like when you look up on social media or as one does on LinkedIn or uh, Instagram, they're always in a random part of the world, and it's hard to keep up. But it's also, like you said, you had a 3-year-old at the time, even now a 7. I have an 8-year-old myself. Is that fun to do and get them involved in
Yeah.
bringing it as a family event, or is that stressful, or with like school or anything like that? What's the
Yeah,
life
no,
balance like there?
it's great. Yeah, it's been really great. Yeah, I like to get them involved as much as possible in my business. One of my friends famously, like, there was a product we had that failed, and he was like, "Oh, what's this?" And my like daughter was like 4 at the time, and she's like, "No one likes this product except for me and Daddy."
It's
um,
like, yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks for
yeah,
the
which is
reminder.
true, which is
That's
true, because I think at one point she was like, "I like this," and I'm like, "No one's buying it."
oh my god.
But yeah, no, it's good. I like to get them involved as much as possible to see what it takes to run a business, to see, what I go through and what I work on and things like that for sure.
That's amazing.
As much as I can. Yeah.
I love that. I love being a family affair and family business, if you will, and kind of teaching them the ropes of entrepreneurial endeavors, if you will.
Hmm.
So you said your wife kind of finds the products. That's a very popular category. You got in early, it sounded like, and the home category is number 2 according to Amazon's small business
Yep.
report. Uh, Competition wise, I know that's super tough, but as you were growing your brand and building a real business, is that something that scares you to have all this competition around? And what I guess like my question would be, building a real business, you fight off other people who might have look-like products or products that are similar or undercut you on cost, or there's all these different iterations that people have to worry about now, and not just
Yeah.
outlisting you or outranking you. What's kind of the things that you would give to sellers who are kind of just starting or growing their brands, and tips to give them?
Yeah, I think if there's anything that you can do to like have it be your own design, to get that patented, I think that's the way to go more than anything, right? That gives you a little bit of a moat because even if, competitors come in to your category or try to knock you off, they still can't really get all the way there, if you get a popular product. Um, so, a design patent, I think you have to declare it within a year of selling in the United States. So, you can at least test it to see if it's going to work first before you start applying for that. But if it is, then that's something I would absolutely, try to go for, because there are a lot of competitors. I can point to markets where, I've literally, my early days before there were certain products that weren't necessarily patentable either. But before I started doing that, I can point and be like, I define this market. I can show you where my influence is on Amazon because there's like 40 people selling the same thing and I was the first one, right?
Right.
And some of those products still sell pretty well because there's a little bit of a review moat, but like there's a ton of competition in there for sure.
Does that feel fair to you, like, if you're first to market, that those are the people who are gonna reap the benefits? Or is it even more tough, like, if for yourself, would you try to go into a with competitive market, like a home category, if you had to start today instead of 10 years ago? What's kind of the your thought process around
Yeah.
first is the only way you can probably be successful in this?
So I understand where they're coming from, and like I don't necessarily mind it that much. I don't like when they like copy my pictures and my copy and my
No,
exact
no, no.
product, right? But like to be like, hey, this is selling well, I should sell it too. Like I get it. Like I understand that that's what you would do. It's not necessarily something that I'm looking to do. I always want to try to have something unique or
Sure,
different or some kind of edge. So I do a lot of work with like looking at reviews of existing products or looking at existing products that are maybe selling okay, but not great, but maybe they have, just okay pictures. and try to work those angles. So if I was to copy a product, maybe I would copy a product that, they're not doing something right on their listing, and I think I can come in there and offer something that they're not, right? And I think a lot of it is like when you're looking to innovate or create like a product, or add something or start something, that like the innovation doesn't come just from the product itself, but it could also come from the listing.
Right. Do you think about the consumer the most during that process too? Because as a global
Yeah.
company, we're always trying to talk about, hey, how does my product not just become a US based product? It's more of a global product, or I want to become a global brand. What is it? What does it say to you from a entrepreneurial standpoint of my product needs to surpass just one segment of the world? It needs to be universal, or it needs to be, you know, speaking to men or all women or
Yeah.
whatever it means to
Yeah,
you.
generally speaking, on a global perspective, I kind of like, have like, I guess I would call it like the New York like perspective. Like if it can make it here, it can make it anywhere, about like the US, like more or less. Like obviously I'll check the keyword rankings and stuff before I launch a product. For example, like, we wanted to do some, taco related products at one point, and you can't sell those in Europe because there's just not the market for tacos in the UK, for example, that there is here. Just it's just the population is different, right? And there's certain things like that where that's just not necessarily possible. But generally speaking, most kitchen products are relatively universal. So, I'll see if there's some kind of angle here. I'll kind of give it a cursory look in another market, and then like, I'll probably just sell in the U.S. and if it sells there, I'll bring it over.
Sure. Yeah, and I just came back from Italy, and it was kind of a funny happenstance of looking at like the localization of everything. My favorite thing was going around and um, understanding just people and kind of what people were doing on a day-to-day basis. And I started to come to the understanding that this lifestyle, it's not built around, you would think it'd be more health conscious, like, people are out and going, but like everyone's vaping, everyone's smoking, maybe like something that's health focused or forward facing, like to help, you know, with nutrition or anything like that may not resonate with people who are, constantly, that's part of their DNA, is that's the thing that's cool. They may not think of it as much as someone here in the United States or in Europe or
Hmm.
something of that sort, in other places in Europe. So, kind of like boots on the ground to understand like who you're talking to is also important as well. But with your kind of products, it's a universal, right? You're talking about
Yep.
the kitchen, right? Where a lot of people are spending their time. Everyone's eating. Not one person doesn't eat, I should say, hopefully. And if they're not, then there's obviously other things. They're not your customer. Uh, but what's kind of the thing that drives you the most in here? Like, is there something that Amazon has flashed to you that says, hey, this is my goal as a kitchen or home based, if you want to call yourself a home based brand, just on Amazon, or does it open up other doors that you didn't expect to come your way? For example,
Uh,
like omni-channel, or just more than just an Amazon brand, I should say.
yeah, there's definitely a bunch of doors that have for sure opened. It's definitely hard to go from, let's say, Amazon to retail, or retail to Amazon, right? And it's kind of like, they're two different worlds, or even, Shopify to Amazon, right? Everything is like very siloed. So it's been difficult. But yeah, there's definitely been advantages. We're in some retail stores, some, one or two big box stores right now. So there's definitely a lot of, advantages to, having that. And at least Amazon gives you an easy way to start, because it's not easy to just get into some of these stores if you're like just, you know, trying to get in them without having the sales velocity or showing what Amazon's doing
Does that does that
necessarily.
s- does that is that something that it motivates you to be in all these other places, or is it more of a hindrance of saying this seems like a lot of work to understand and be
Yeah,
in like all the places at once?
it seems like a lot of work. uh,
Fair enough. Yeah, that's fair.
like I think there's something to be said for being concentrated and focused on the marketplaces that are doing the best versus trying to be everywhere. So, and that's something that I've kind of tried to be everywhere, and there's some benefits there, and in some ways it's been good, and in some ways it's hasn't been, focus wise. But yeah, I would say a lot of it is not necessarily worth it
Were
in
one of
some
those
ways.
things, were they, what's a market, for example, like, if you had to say it was surprising to you that you thought you would do a lot better in, but you kind of just had to pull back, whether it be on Amazon or, a different like a
Yeah,
Walmart
yeah,
or,
yeah, probably. I mean, Walmart or Shopify have been both really tough. Walmart was really pretty good in the beginning, but it seems like, lately it's just been a lot more work than it probably is worth.
What do you mean
Um,
by that? Just like the
uh,
sales aren't there
yeah, the
versus
sales aren't necessarily there, and just the way the inventory has to be kind of siloed, and but like it's doing okay, but like for what is involved with a Walmart account to sell there versus not, it's been a lot more difficult. And Shopify too has definitely been one that's been a little difficult. I sell kitchen products. A lot of them are not priced necessarily crazy high, so it doesn't really give much, room to kind of market or use ads to get them to your Shopify store to buy as it does on Amazon. So they've both been pretty challenging, I would say.
okay. So what when you're so as a brand, you're looking for those opportunities and kind of I had a great conversation with R Blank. His business is Shield Your Body, and he has for been selling on Amazon for since 2020, and it's like a lot of like digital admittance from like your smart devices and
Hmm.
protecting you on there. And his kind of goal for his team this year was like to refocus and kind of like slim down, not just get like shiny object syndrome, which I think is a lot of fair for a lot of big brands who are being successful in their categories. For you, what are the things that you have to do as a brand in a very competitive category? His is a little bit more niche. Yours, I would say, is a very competitive way. What are those things that you have to constantly try to like put a lot of more of your effort into? Is it listings or is it utilizing technology? What are those factors you have to do to stay on top of like the mountain, if you will?
Yeah, I think it's literally everything, right? From all angles, right? Sometimes it's like, how can we reduce costs? What can we do to improve the product? What can we do to improve the listing? Like, constantly working to innovate, working to just get everything as best as it can be, really. Any slight edge, always can, compound, especially if you're doing a reasonable amount of sales, right? So, if you can save, 20 cents off a product, or, you know, 20% off of bad reviews, or whatever you can do, like that all just compounds over time. So
How do
yeah,
you
I'm
how do you
constantly working on that. Yeah.
So how do you as a business owner kind of take into Amazon's, new announcements and things like that under the fold? Like I'm assuming you're so busy, it's so hard to stay up to date on all those different facets. Who do you rely on? Is it yourself? Is it a team? Is it who do you have to incorporate into this process to make sure that you're staying in the know with, different policies or different programs Amazon's rolling out or
Yeah,
anything of that sort?
that mostly just falls on me. Yeah, I do
One
that.
man show, huh? So
No, yeah, I mean, I have got a team behind me, but if there's something like that, I'm usually the one that stays on top of it, and then make sure they see it.
how are
um
you doing that? Is there like a person or a group of people or what
Yeah,
are you?
I'm in some Facebook groups,
Okay,
and some groups with friends, and I've got a lot of friends in the community. So I talk all the time to different people. So it's pretty easy to stay on top because I'm always kind of in the weeds of just running the business. So um, yeah, it's not something that kind of goes by me.
interesting. So you brought up a really cool, have a community involvement,
Hmm.
but that kind of takes me in, I think, naturally to what you and your cohort, I should say, to your team, if you will, at AMZ Innovate. You guys created something that's been going on for, I want to say, is this the fifth or sixth year?
This is
What
the
how
fifth year. Yeah,
Fifth year, okay,
yeah,
see, it sticks in my head, like, all these numbers in my head, they're just constantly swirling until I can pull from it, but 5th year, an event is a very hard thing to do, and everywhere I look, there's always a new, quote, "event" or a new,
yeah.
mastermind or something like that. For you as a seller who's been doing this for a decade now, why create an event? Like, that seems, again, so stressful, so, like, overwhelming. What was the purpose and point of AMZ Innovate?
That's a great question. It is very stressful. um, yeah, a lot of these events kind of come and go. It seems like, because I think people look at it and like, oh, this is so easy, and then they run it and they're just like, oh, this was a lot of work, and we lost money, or we just couldn't operate it right, because it is not an easy thing to put on. But what happened is that we kind of walked into it blindly. So Innovate was founded, with me and Jared Orkin, and Jared had started a Facebook group, not Facebook group, I'm sorry, a meetup group in New York City, in what, 2016 or so, 2015, something around there. Which
Mhm.
if you look at the timeline, was right around when I was starting up, and I was living in New York City at the time, so I just went to every meetup group that he had. And the first one, there was like 4 people sitting around a table and talking, and I was one of them. And then the next one was 8, and then it was 15, then 30, then 50, then 70, then 100. And I started running it with Jared because I lived in the city, so I went to every single one. Nothing else better to do anyway, um, and just trying to learn. And at some point along the way, he, called me up and was like, "Hey, do you want to put on an event? Like, just put on a conference and see what happens." And I was like, "Do you have any experience in that?" And he's like, "No." He's like, "Do you?" I was like, "No." I was like, "All right, let's do it."
Yeah, why
So
not?
we just kind of, yeah, we kind of just jumped into it just to see what would happen. And we had like 100 people in a basement in the West Village, and it was reasonably successful. And cuts an hour, it's just crazy how much it's gone. It's going to be, maybe 1,000 people this year. We'll see, but yeah, it's going to be this amazing event in New York City. So it's incredible.
Yeah,
Uh,
now I was gonna say it's a 2-day event now. Like you guys expand from 1 day, now it's 2 days.
2 days,
You're
yeah.
gonna be a week long by the time we're all
Uh,
said and done here. It's gonna
I,
be just
I don't
like
know if I
a
could survive a week long.
well, your business needs focused on. You can't do this all the week, one
Yeah,
week of the year, but
yeah. You
2-day event. It's happening November 13th and 14th. Um, why the name AMZ Innovate? Like what's the genesis behind the name?
That's a good question. I don't really know. We were kind of just like trying to think of names, and it just kind of came up. But I think, from what we wanted to do is that we wanted to create an event that was like the event that we would want to see as sellers. We have a third partner now, but all 3 of us who run the event are all primarily sellers. That's what we do. A lot of people who run events are, event companies or service providers, or they're not
Hmm.
really sellers, right? And for us, it was like, who do we want to see speak? Who would be cool? Who do we want to have? What kind of presentations would we want to see? What are the things that are affecting the community right now? Like, what am I working on? What are you working on? Right? And kind of creating an event around that. And I think the Innovate kind of came around because it's like trying to just be innovative in our business and not just kind of relying on the same old stuff that kind of a lot of the other events seem to put out.
So is there a theme every year? If I'm listening to this and I'm a seller and I'm based in New York City,
Yeah.
never been to it, like what's kind of what do I expect going into this? Is there you said like we're learning about this. Is there a themes to
Yeah.
the whole event or
I would say there's not necessarily a theme, but I would say that we rely primarily on our main stage, at least. Our breakout sessions maybe are a little different, but on our main stage, we have almost exclusively sellers up there. Most of them are people who don't really speak at events, but people who are running, big businesses. Many of them, multi-$100 million businesses. Um, we've had a couple people there that were even higher than that. We had
Wow.
someone even just attending last year who is has over $1 billion lifetime sales on Amazon Easy. Like, does he and his business does more than like even like Thrasio or someone just there. Trying to get him to speak next year, but but yeah, but we get really like the best of the best people we can on stage, and it's a very high level conversation and audience. And we had a lot of big businesses come through, even just being in New York. Fortune 500 businesses showed up to the event, and just a really high caliber of attendees because they know that the event is going to be just really high level content and knowledge, and it's like a fire hose of content versus something else.
Dash
But
here
yeah,
and there, yeah.
yeah, exactly. So
So
um,
I've been to my fair share of events in the space, and it's all really exciting too. Like you want to sit down and just like absorb it in. It's really stressful for speakers to do this, but you're finding people who are sellers that, like I said, kind of at the top of the show, you're a super busy guy. Your head's down. You would rather not speak into the ether that is like YouTube or
mhm.
shout and be like really loud. How are you finding these sellers? Is it just like they come to you? Like how are you approaching them? Like it's a very
Almost,
secretive space for some of these uh,
yeah.
top sellers.
Almost all of it is just talking to people that either we know or know of, or trying to get an intro. All 3 of us are very well connected in the space, so we know a lot of these sellers, and it's just like talking to them and being like, "Oh, hey, that's cool." Hearing something, them share something, for example, and being like, "Hey, that's cool. You want to speak about it on stage at Innovate?" Like, no, 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 come on, come on, come on. We'll get you out there. All right, fine. Like that kind of thing, right? So it's not necessarily just like just like waiting to be approached.
Right. No, I mean that's really cool. Is there a lot of like when you spoke for the first time, and I know that you're a speaker on the stage too, is that is that a whole different skill set or something that you feel is natural that you're talking from a perspective or because it's personal, or are you going more for a like a topic that you want to people are asking to cover and then you're like, yeah, let me talk about my own experience. Is that easy for you, or is that something that is difficult to kind of present in front of other people when it's just you and a computer and you're like, hey, I'm going to figure this out, and it's a whole different skill set, right? It's like just me and you talking right now, we're
Mhm.
between screens, and then the audience out is yelling at their phone or their computer right now behind the scenes, but we don't hear it. It's a whole different world. What was that like for you for the first time when you did
Uh,
that?
yeah, it was a difficult initially for sure. In the first Innovate, we learned a lot, like a lot about putting on an event and what is involved in that. So yeah, I wouldn't say it was necessarily easy, but as we've run it now for 5 years, I think we know what we're doing, and we can kind of work through that. But yeah, I would say initially it was not necessarily the easiest thing for us.
Is there is there a speaker on stage that has changed your business completely once you heard something you were not expecting and it's completely lit you on fire, or
Yeah,
another way it scared you the other way and you're like, don't do that, like avoid at all costs?
yeah, totally. I would say for sure there's definitely been some tidbits that have been presented that have really, it's funny there. I think there was a point last year where I was on stage and Jared was presenting something and I saw like a tip that someone from the audience actually gave and I like was like, oh wow, I need to do that now. And I like, took out my phone and took a picture of it because like right there on stage. But yeah, yeah, it absolutely happens all the time. I wish I could see more of the content at our own event because I'm usually too busy behind the scenes running things.
Running
But yeah,
around.
a lot of times it's really been pretty great for sure.
Absolutely. My favorite was, I think it was last year at an event. I won't say which one, but I know you've had this speaker on, so I'll say his name. Brandon Young
Hmm.
had done a like a an episode, and he actually used an example in his presentation of the brand. That brand owner happened to be, and he didn't know this in the audience. That person, he goes, if I were this person, I would make this a little tidbit in this little switch. This person was writing notes, like you said, took the picture,
Hmm.
record this, did it initially, and I think he said in the next day he had seen a $10,000 lift or something crazy over like less than 24 hours just
Wow.
by going to that event and like seeing from a third perspective of happen to have his brand and someone else who's you know an eight-figure seller his hands, and then he just said I would just tweak it here, and then sales shot up, SEO shot up. He started appearing in rank 1, 2, 3 within there, and he saw like this huge lift in that aspect. Is that empowering? Is that kind of what makes you guys motivated to get somebody in the audience to have that one little light bulb moment and like elevate them? Like what I guess what drives you guys to keep doing this every year and
Yeah, I mean,
not
I
like
love
say
it.
I'm
I love
done?
it. So we still run that meetup that I mentioned in the beginning.
Awesome.
And I have people come up to me being like, we've never spoke, but like I'm, doing X, Y, and Z now. And it's like I'm doing this crazy job in the space, and it was like I, came to these meetups knowing nothing about selling. And now I do this, or now I've got a multi-million-dollar business. And a lot of that was just coming to the meetups and coming to the events and things like that. So yeah, I think it's really great. And from a local perspective too, there aren't really many events in New York. Ed Rosenberg has his in Brooklyn, which is
Hmm.
great, but there's really not that many events in New York. And pound for pound, there's probably more sellers within like a 2-3 hour drive of New York City than anywhere in the world outside of China. Um, right. And including big businesses and all that. And like, so it's like, to me, it's like, building the community here and putting on an event that, makes it, worthwhile to be in New York and to really showcase New York. It really, I like that too a lot.
Why do you think there's more in New York? I'm curious.
Well, I'm saying more like the New York metro area, but I think,
Hmm.
there's just a ton of business happening in this area, right?
Hmm.
Like it just everywhere, right? Not to say there's not other
Right.
places, but New York, Philadelphia, through like Maryland, Massachusetts, all the way through there. Like there's just tons of sellers in this region. Um,
So is that something that you think? I guess this is somebody that I know I'm speaking to, a person who's putting on events. And there was this wave of 2021 or 2022 people are like, "Oh, I'm tired of events, like, I'm tired of going stuff."
mhm.
What gets people out of bed, prefer like, the whole metaphor of what gets people out of bed, gets on the plane or a train or an automobile and gets gets them to an event like that. Have you guys like think about that, or what's the consistency that you're trying to showcase and the value, and what like tips that scale into, hey, I need to be at this quote event?
Yeah, I think that for us, it's getting, just a unique lineup that's different than what other events have that are, primarily sellers where people think that you're going to learn a lot more than be kind of pitched necessarily. So I think that's kind of our angle. We've never, last year was the first time we actually even advertised the event at all. Um,
Really? Okay.
yeah, we had never, everything was just word of mouth, maybe a couple of Facebook posts that we individually put up there. And that was basically it. So, um, like a lot of it's really been word of mouth on our part of it spreading and people being like, hey, this was a great event. I've got to go to this event, or, that kind of thing. So, which is really amazing. But yeah, a lot of it is just, putting on the event that, like I said before, the event that we want to see as sellers. And I think that if
Absolutely.
it moves the needle for us and we get excited by something, then there's other sellers out there who will do the same for.
Gotcha. So, kind of like wrapping up for us today, Brandon. I know
Mhm.
you're a busy person, but for where we are today in 2023, and what you've seen with innovations and all these little changes recently, I've talked about this. I think that announcements with Amazon, new programs, they're kind of like, uh, I feel like Amazon sharing more data, like how many units per day are being sold or per month are being sold more. They're kind of giving more of an insight to products more than ever and brands more than ever. Global reviews, you're talking about AI summarized reviews now, so it's even easier for people to kind of look at what your product has done over its lifetime. What's the what's the thing that's excited you the most that Amazon's kind of introduced to its ecosystem and marketplace for you as a brand owner?
I mean, I think the brand analytics reports have just been a complete game changer. There's just so much great data in there to mine, to look at, to study. It can really show you, what keywords your product is moving the needle on versus not. And really, I think that's really been the biggest change for sure.
Okay. And then what's kind of like your ultimate goal for your business as it is today? Of is there a certain mental threshold that you're gonna be like, hey, this is where I want it to be, and like this is what's driving me towards it? How do you keep yourself motivated towards that
Uh,
goal?
that's a good question.
I'm all about the good questions here
Yeah,
on
yeah, yeah. No, no,
Global
that's
Spin.
it's hard to say. It's been a very tumultuous couple of years, I would say, in the kitchen space. Right. So things for us were going pretty good. COVID hit, things went insane, like just beyond insane.
In
And
a good
then
way, right?
in a good way, yeah. And then things retreated quite a bit since then. And then now we're back to where we were during COVID, which is great. So a lot of it is just continuing to grow. But I felt like the last year was about really just like building up systems again, and models, and working on cost of goods and things, because sea freight was really expensive for a while there, and
Mhm.
all that stuff. And now that things are kind of getting back to normal, a little more predictable, kind of ready to rock and roll again. So I'm really just kind of excited for what the next year is going to be. So yeah, it should be good. But yeah, it's been a very kind of tumultuous time in the kitchen space for sure.
I'm sure. That's a crazy space to be in, and it's hectic
Yeah.
in my kitchen all the time, so I can imagine, for someone who's, in that space, there's just constantly trying to innovate, and it seems like the most simple products that are kind of the craziest that are, they take off and then they don't, and then they're back to earth, and, I love
Yeah.
it. I love this space, and, I think it's one of the most fun spaces to be in, to be innovative and to be creative and stand out in there for sure. But hey, congratulations on all success for not just your brand, for we just said it out loud, so it exists 10 years in the space, and for also AMZ Innovate. And again, if for that event, I know it's a few months out. We just looked at the website today at amzinnovate.co. We just got under 150 days. We're at 149 in 23 hours. So that's coming up in November 13th and 14th, correct?
Yep,
And if
that's it. Yeah.
they want to attend, they just go to the website. What's the best way to do that?
Yeah, amzinnovate.co, and I'll get a coupon code out there
Okay.
for you guys. I think you guys are going to provide it right later.
Yep.
So there'll be a coupon code as well. And yeah, it's pretty reasonably priced for being in New York City. and for what it is. So I think it should be affordable to everyone to come to this. So it's going to be a great event. Yeah.
There's a cruise going on. Like I'm all
Yeah.
about that. I mean, November it might be a little chilly, but hey, like we'll just huddle around, drink a little bit more, or talk a little bit more, or just run around a little bit more to stay warm on the cruise. But I'm excited about it. Hopefully, we'll be seeing you there, and I seen you there in person, and
Yeah.
we're excited to kind of bring this to light. So congrats on the success for an event. Super stressful, I'm
Thank
assuming,
you.
and like we talked about, and congrats on the success in the for your brand in that space. And are you guys gonna be teasing like who's speaking on that soon, or is that like
Yeah, we've sent out a list of some people who are speaking, and we're
oh
adding
cool?
as we go along. We're moving a little bit slower than maybe some other events. I feel like with us, we kind of overbook speakers sometimes because we get really excited by everyone that we can get.
You get a lot
Um,
of people say yes, and you don't
y-
expect all the yeses.
yeah. So we kind of the last like 2 years, we kind of came out with like our list, and then everyone said yes, which was great. And then, as we moved along and got closer to the event, just people kept falling into our lap that would be like, oh man, like we got to get this together. Yeah, if we can pull that off, that would be amazing. And then it's like, all right, we got to move this over here and move that over. And it makes it a little too compact. So we have 2 days now to play with time. But yeah, we've been kind of like, let's just see what like happens as we get closer. And then, we'll plan a little bit more as we go along.
I love that. Well, if you ever need an MC or anything like that, you know where to go. So I'm more than happy to pitch myself for those kinds of things as well. So, Brandon, thank you so much for hopping on the Global Spin podcast. If people want to reach out to you or they connect, is there a best way to do that for you or
Yeah,
to
you
ask
can
a
find me
question?
on Facebook or LinkedIn or really anywhere. I'm pretty active on all the social media stuff. I don't really post; I just look at it. So, but if you message me
You're a
there, I should
lurker.
find it.
Yeah,
I'm a lurker. I'm absolutely a lurker.
I love that.
Reply guy, maybe occasionally, but yeah, yeah, I'm a lurker.
That's awesome. So, hey, congrats again. Thanks so much for spending some time here in our
Yeah,
corner of the internet. Consider you a friend of the show now. And anytime you want to hop back on, we're happy to, pick your brain and kind of see what the space is for you and what you're seeing. And would love to share that with our audience as well.
sounds great.
Awesome. Thank you, Brandon. Thank you, everyone, for hopping on the Global Spin podcast. Again, my name is Ryan Cramer. I'm the host of this podcast. This is episode 8, selling on Amazon tips, tricks, and running a real business. This podcast is fueled by Frisbi. If you don't know what Frisbi is, it's this company here on my hat. We're a global expansion company. So if you're looking to be able to expand your brand to different markets through Amazon or beyond, go ahead and check out frisbi.com. It's free to sign up and you can start moving your products around the world. Look and see where you can grow into your those markets, those niches, if you will, and growing your brand into a global brand. So go ahead and check us out at frisbi.com. You can reach out to me on social media on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. Just search for Frisbi, or you can search for Ryan Cramer as well. This is the Global Spin Podcast. We'll catch you guys next time on another episode. We have more episodes coming out next week, so make sure you subscribe to our channels and follow us on social media. But we'll catch you guys next time on another episode. Take care.